got hit by COVID, I enjoy talking on the stage, moving around. I never have a script, actually. I just talk. Okay? But now we're stuck to this thing. Anyway, so first, the poster. I had a big argument with my architect friends, because the poster says architect on duty. So my friends are telling me, is it really architect, ARCHITECH, or is it architect with a T? I was defending this poster. I said, no, it is really architect. It's a technical presentation about the roofs, no? So that is correct. Architect is a technical presentation, no? So anyway, so this is the first presentation I'm doing on roofs. I call this version 1, no? And we call it the crowning glory because, the hair of a human being is actually the crowning glory. It is used to express oneself, to beautify oneself, to protect the head. Although sometimes it's not there. But if it's not there, then that becomes a statement in itself, no? And as architects, we'd always like to do iconic buildings. I'm sure that all of us, we dream of having an iconic building, such as this. Everyone can clearly see that this is the Marina Bay Sands because of that iconic rooftop, that iconic surfboard on top of those 3 buildings. So today, let's tackle this. Sustainable, we'll describe it first, and then the roof. In general, Asian architects normally create roof structures because of the way where we are. No, it rains a lot. We have to shelter ourselves from the heat, etc. So we're actually essentially a roof structure. So today, my flow, I'll first talk about sustainability in general so that we get the big picture and we're able to understand the distinction between green architecture and sustainable design or sustainability. Then we'll move into roof design strategies. Then the materials of the roof itself. And then let's go over some projects which I will highlight some of the interesting features of the roofs. So first, sustainability. Many of you are young and you may not know why are we so hot on sustainability now. What happened? I would like to say that the first major event which brought up the concept of sustainability was in the 1960s when an author called Schumacher wrote a book called Small is Beautiful. It was a business book. He's an economist, and he brought up that concept of appropriate technology. What did he say there? It was at that time when the US companies were starting to go global. They were becoming multinationals. And from head office, they would push their corporate culture across the globe. But this guy, Schumacher, said, no, it won't work. You have to adapt your corporate culture to the locality where you are putting up your branch office. Example, McDonald's. McDonald's is internationally known to sell hamburgers. But if you go to McDonald's in the Philippines, you will find something which is not available in other McDonald's in other countries. Longanisa, for example. Okay, so that's how McDonald's was able to do appropriate technology, even being a global company into the Philippines. And in terms of sustainability, this is critical because sustainability is not global. Sustainability is local. It is fine-tuned to the location, the climate, the resources of a specific place. In the 1970s, the oil-producing countries decided to clamp down on the production of oil, and this spurred on the energy crisis. The US was hit very badly by it because most of their electricity came from fossil fuel powered plants. No? And therefore, because of that, fuel was going up, the cost of electricity was going up, and therefore, even the American Institute of Architects at the time in the 1970s started a campaign to create energy-efficient buildings. Okay, so it started out with energy-efficient buildings. In the 1980s, the United Nations realized that, if one country or one group of countries can actually control a vital resource needed for the survival of the world, what about the other resources? So they crafted the famous Brundtland Report definition of sustainability. No? all revolving around resources, to be able to preserve resources. The 1990s, the business community realized, hey, there's a good business in sustainability. Everybody is now trying to go green. Who's going to tell them that they are green? Okay, we are a green building rating system. We will tell you whether your building is green or not. We have a checklist, and if you reach a certain number, you are officially green. And then, of course, in the year 2000, our friend Paring Al Gore, he came up with this movie, An Inconvenient Truth, and he started talking about climate change. So that is how we have gone through the system of appropriate technology, energy crisis, all the way up to the issue we have now, which is climate change. And that's why in media, you see these issues being brought up all the time. No? However, the UN is even trying its best able to bring sustainability into the world, no? Cutting emissions, etc. And the current thrust of the United Nations is these Sustainable Development Goals. There are 17 Sustainable Development Goals. Sustainable Goal number 11 is actually specifically for us architects, sustainable cities and communities. On the lower portion of the chart, this is the scorecard or the report of the Philippines, SB 2019, on how we are doing with the Sustainable Development Goals. Look at number 11. 11 here, 11 there. What does the orange arrow pointing horizontally mean? It means stagnating, which means, ladies and gentlemen, as far as sustainable cities and communities are concerned, in the Philippines, we are stagnating. And guess who are responsible for sustainable cities and communities? Putting up the buildings. That is us architects. So we have a big responsibility. No? So that's the blow up of the icon, sustainable cities and communities. And for your information, it has 7 subcategories. Okay, that means safe and affordable housing, affordable and sustainable transport systems, inclusive and sustainable urbanization, protecting the world's cultural and natural heritage, reduce the adverse effects of natural disasters, reduce environmental impacts of cities, provide access to safe and inclusive green and public spaces. However, even if we have climate change, even if there's so much talk about and hype about climate change in media, a recent study, I think this is 2020, Harvard study, finds that only 11% of the Filipinos understand what climate change is all about. And that's why it is there is a sluggish acceptance of the idea of going green, the idea of going sustainable. Because people don't understand. They do not connect climate change with what is happening in our society right now. And that's why I like to share with you this cause and effect series. For example, our lifestyles have changed. When you go around, you always look for the outlet in case you have to charge your cell phone. Our lifestyles have changed so much that it requires so much energy or electricity to run our computers, to run our TVs, to run our air cons, etc. Now, most of that electricity or energy is coming from, at the moment, fossil fuel power plants, diesel, coal-powered plants, which actually emit a lot of carbon into the air, which is known as greenhouse gases. Greenhouse gases cause global warming. Global warming causes climate change, and climate change causes an intensity of our natural disasters. So there, no, you can see that our lifestyle and energy usage is actually the bottom line and causing actually climate change and the intensive disasters. And guess what? Of the energy being used, the electricity being used, buildings account for 50%. So therefore, ladies and gentlemen, it is us architects who have a big responsibility to lower greenhouse gases by creating more energy efficient buildings. So let's go into green architecture. Look at these 2 buildings. Are these 2 buildings green? You might say people will look at the solar panels of the house on the lower portion and will say, oh, that's a green building. What about the Bahay Kubo? I don't know. But both are actually green. They actually work within the place where they are actually built. That's why the first statement I'd like to make about green architecture is this. Green architecture is not a look, it is not a style, it is a function. So there, no, you can have a modern looking building, you can have an old looking building, as long as it functions as a green building, then it is green architecture. It is not a look, it's not a style. And I've always defined green architecture in this way. Green architecture is designing with nature. Why? Because nature is even inherently sustainable. It goes through cycles. Nature provides us the resources. Nature provides us the environment in which to build. And therefore, if we want to attune or acclimatize or, as mentioned earlier, apply appropriate technology to the building or house we're going to put up in that specific place, then we're going to have to design with nature in that place. So the green architecture is designing with nature. Green architecture is not the same in different parts of the world because every part of the world has a different climate. It has to be tuned in to the local climate. Now, people ask and confuse. I myself, sometimes I get confused when I use the terminology. Is sustainable development and green architecture the same? No. Green architecture is a component of sustainable development. Sustainable development is the big picture. Green architecture is that component which looks into the built environment. The most famous definition of sustainable development came out in the Brundtland Report in the 1987. And it says, a development that meets the needs of the present without compromising the ability of future generations to meet their own needs. I was not comfortable with this definition for a long time. It focused on needs. And needs easily leads into greed. And it revolves only around resources. So after some years, I found probably at the moment what I would say is the best definition of sustainability. Sustainability is the capacity of human society to continue indefinitely within the Earth's natural cycles. So you see, it's a big change, no? It's not only focused on the needs of man to survive, but it is focused on working with nature, working with nature cycles so that we continue on and on and on. This is by Carl Hendrik Robert in 1989. I would like to recommend this definition to you because it captures better the concept of sustainability. And as nature has its own cycles, this is just one of the cycles of nature, the water cycle. It rains, water falls ground, it gets filtered, it comes out in springs, potable water, goes to creeks, streams, goes to lakes, seas, evaporates into the sky, and comes down. So nature is a cycle. And we have to design likewise. No, we cannot have what is known as what they call the linear economy. In other words, we extract materials from the ground, we use it, and we dump it. That is not sustainable. That is linear. We have to be able to find a way that we can actually reuse those materials after its lifetime. So, let's go straight to how to go green. How do we go green? I wrote down many years ago, and I've talked about this, and I'm sure half of the people here probably have heard about this, the 10 steps to sustainability. I crafted 10 simple steps so that anyone can actually put up, no matter how small, a green project with very practical consequences. At the end of the day, what will happen is that we save money in water, energy, resources, and we actually become healthier. So this is the 10 steps to sustainability. First step is block the sun. Why? Because in the Philippines, it's very hot. So we try to minimize the sun coming in to the east and the west side, more on the west side. No? Then let the light in. There's natural light during the day. And that is absolutely free. And if you're going to work with nature, then we've got to work and utilize that natural light for free. And where's the best place to put windows to get the light in? North and on the south. Because in the north especially, you can bring in a lot of light with minimal heat. Number 3, catch the breeze. In the Philippines, in general, we have what is known as the Amihan and the Bagat, which is the northeast and the southwest breeze. Of course, each one has a microclimate, so it's best to always look for the windrows diagram of the location you are in to find out exactly what is the breeze in your area. Number 4, insulate the roof. Why? The roof is hit by the sun the whole time. No? And actually, the reason I started out the 10 steps because we are going to zoom in and detail that point number 4, which is insulate the roof. Number 5, harvest rainwater. Again, rainwater is free. We can capture it. We can use it. It will save us money if we actually capture rainwater. And if we harvest rainwater, there will be less water running around in the streets and therefore minimizing floods. Number 6, grow your food. Okay. Sustainability. Nature is there. Nature will just it has the ground, has water, and has the seeds. And if you just plant it, it can actually be self-sustaining. Number 7, efficient lighting. Look for efficient lighting, energy efficient lighting. Even in the way you place your switches. In some of my lectures, when I talk about this, I always suggest don't put the switch of the light beside the window and the switch of the light away from the window on the same switch. Why? Because during the day, you don't need to turn on the light beside the window. You'll be wasting electricity. Number 8, keep cool. Essentially, we are a hot country, and therefore, at times, we need to keep cool. We need to look for energy efficient technology, like maybe start with fans, combine fans and air condition. Then look at green materials that are either renewable or they're durable. And finally, alternative energy. Okay, because of course, if you want to reduce our reliance on the fossil fuel plants, then we have to look for ways of actually producing energy. Solar panels is one very easy way to do within your house. No? So just a plug-in, if you want to learn more about Practical Green, I actually put up a dedicated Facebook page which talks about Practical Green. No? My 10 steps to sustainability is actually what I call Practical Green. It's facebook.com/pracgreen, no? Short for Practical Green. Okay, so now let's go to the second portion, roof design strategies. I'm going to be shot by historians, but this is just a very, very short history of the Philippine roofs. So you can start out with the Bahay Kubo. And the Bahay Kubo, at the time, there was no Grab deliveries or Lazada or Shopee. So the people had to look for roof materials which were just in their backyard. And therefore, they found nipa, anahaw, sometimes bamboo. So that was essentially what the roofs were during the era of the Bahay Kubo. The Spaniards came and they saw the Bahay Kubo. They put up something similar. They called it the Bahay na Bato. But the Spaniards, knowing how to fire up or burn clay to produce bricks and clay tiles, they introducing to the Philippines clay tiles for the roofs. Where did he get the clay? Not from Malaysia, not from Indonesia, right from our own backyard. We have clay. We have this material. And then US came and they created for housing the Philippines the iconic bungalow. You can see this in the projects, no? Project 6, Project 7, Project 8, no? The song which is made popular, it's called Laki sa Layaw. Jeprox is baliktad of project, no? Mga Pinoy rockers. So there, no? But what happened to those bungalows? They were using metal sheets, galvanized iron sheets. Now, if you look at the 3 sheets, roofing material, you'll see that maybe the GI sheets are not exactly the right material for the tropics, which is very hot, no? So let's go back to the Bahay Kubo and just get some highlights, no? Look at this Bahay Kubo. First of all, you have the roof, and the roof protects the house from rain and sun. That's why there's always an overhang, no? Or what we call the media agua. It goes beyond the building line, so that when it rains or the sun is on that side, it actually shades the building. Now, sometimes you might be thinking, what about the buildings now? We have a modern architecture, no? Without just glass buildings. Well, maybe that's not the right approach for the tropics. And then always, since hot air rises, there's always an exit for hot air somewhere on the top portion of the roof. Very, very basic thing. Sometimes, because of our bamboo slatted roof, the breeze can even come from below the floor, go up, cool the people, and as it cools the people, the air gets warmer, and it goes up and exits. No, I was able to find if my internet connection is unstable. Am I okay already? Back? Am I okay? Okay, so let's continue. Hopefully the internet is back. So I found this little rule of thumb on how wide the medya agua overhang should be. This came from a Hilti Foundation research presentation. No? And that research said that the overhang should be 1/3 of the height of the vertical surface it is protecting. So for example, if you're covering only 3 meters, which is 1 floor, then the minimum overhang should be 1 meter. If you're covering 2 floors, maybe about 6 meters, then the minimum overhang should be 2 meters. Okay, so it's a very interesting rule of thumb. The height divided by 3. At the same time, we have to design our roofs to fit the condition we have in the Philippines. In the Philippines, because of our location near the equator and in the ring of fire, we have earthquakes, we have volcanoes, we have typhoons, we have heat. So all of these 4 have to be adjusted into or designed into the roof. For example, typhoons. No, we have a lot of rain from the typhoons. We have to be able to shed that. We have very, very strong wind, so we should be able to clamp down our roof so that it doesn't blow away or fly away. Volcanoes. For the longest time, we weren't worried about volcanoes, but I had the experience of the volcano eruption of the Taal volcano eruption sometime January 2020, I think, or 2019. Sorry, 2019. And I had the construction in Tagaytay at that time. And the lahar covered my roof. And I was thinking, oh, maybe we should redesign the roofs near volcanoes. And then alternative energy, which is photovoltaics, we should be able to put it on the roof. And of course, disaster resiliency for typhoons. No? So let's go to first, thermal comfort. Of course, as I mentioned earlier, step 4 of the 10 steps of sustainability is insulating that roof. So how do we insulate that roof? Since most of our roofs are actually metal, we always have a heat foil under. No? If you look at the right side here, you put the foil under the roof, and there should be an air gap between the roof and the heat foil. No? This is very, very important. In fact, our standard detail in designing for buildings is that because of since sometimes GI sheet is unavoidable because of budget, we have from the top the GI sheet, then the purlins, then the foil under the purlins, installed under the purlins. Almost all the contractors complain about it, even if it's in their bid documents. So they end up always putting the heat insulation on top of the purlins and then install the roof on top of it. So as a compromise, many times I ask them to sort of loosen the insulation so that it goes and loops from the purlin, goes down again, up and down. So at least there's an air gap. No? You know, if you want, in the Philippine Green Building Code, there is the statement of roof insulation. It says there, no, insulation can help reduce heat gain in a building, thus improving thermal comfort, which is what it's supposed to do. Acoustic quality, you know, if you have a GI roof and it rains hard, it's very loud, no? The pitter patter on that thin sheet. And of course, it reduces the load on the air conditioning system. That's where you have energy efficiency. So you have thermal comfort, which makes the building healthier, and you have energy efficiency because you reduce the load on the air conditioning system. Now, if you want to get technical, that roof insulation should have an average thermal value, the R value, of at least 8, R8. Now let's look at some examples. R value per inch. Polyurethane, 5.6 to 6.5. So that means you'll have to have at least 1.5 inches thick of polyurethane to be able to meet that R8. Polystyrene, 3.8 to 5 per inch. So that means not maybe an 1.5 inches again. Fiberglass, 3.7. So you probably have to have at least 2-inch fiberglass. Rock wool also, 3.7, so 2 inches. Straw, 2.4 to 3. So you probably have to have almost a foot. And then reflective bubble foil, but that's what I use. And that's why I can never rate myself with the Philippine Green Building Code, no? Because reflective bubble foil is only 1 to 1.1, which means you need 8 layers of that, no, to reach R8, no? The other way to insulate the roof is to spray on top of the roof. And there's polyurethane spray. In fact, some companies, they say that, especially for warehouses and all, instead of replacing the roof, you can just patch the roof up, clean it up, and spray on top of it. And then coloring the roof white. There's a cool roof movement of coloring it white. And as some of the green building codes in the world actually stipulate that, no? But, you know, I actually did it and I regretted it because I forgot to tell the client something. So one of my projects many years ago, I had the roof in white long span GI sheet. Fantastic. It's supposed to keep cool, etc. 15 years later, I droned in the area and I saw my same building. And the roof was so dirty, it was almost black with white lines, no? You know, that is a problem with the cool roof. If you decide to use it, tell the client that if keep that clean, you'll have to repaint it regularly. And in terms of light, it says it's one of my tips, no? Choose the lightest color available for whatever roofing material you use, because the roof is the part of the building that is hit by direct sunlight most of the day. Of course, darker colors absorb the heat and transmit that heat to the interior. So what is the coefficient of reflectance of different colors? If the light source is 1, white reflects almost everything, 0.91. And if you go down, so you can choose your colors, no? Yellow, followed by orange, followed by green, followed by red, followed by blue, followed by gray, followed by violet. Violet is 0.14 only, no? So there you have that range of colors which you can use for your roofs if you want a cool roof. And in the Philippine Green Building Code, it even recommends light-colored building envelopes, especially the roof, can reduce heat transfer. And they have a value which we have to reach, the solar reflectance value, SRI. And here, if you want to conform to the Philippine Green Building Code, that metal roof must have a minimum SRI of 70. So what are the colors which reach 70? So SRI of 17 above, 1, reflective white, 86 to 92, basic white, 80 to 88, beige and tan, 74 to 80. Now, other colors do not meet SRI 70, and they are brown, gray, blue, red, green, and terracotta red. Okay? That's if you want to conform with the Philippine Green Building Code. Now, of course, what is the function of building envelope? Building envelope is to be able to create a comfortable zone for the human beings inside their structure, to create a thermal comfort of about 25 degrees centigrade and about maybe 6 degrees relative humidity. And we have at our disposal the building form and the building fabric. And a major component of that building form and fabric is the roof. And we'll focus on the roof. Now, how does hot air move around? Because remember, we're looking at thermal comfort. Hot air will always go out. It will go up, rather. Always go up. So therefore, if you're going to design something in the roof, make sure that there's a way for it to get out. One of the techniques of making sure that you have a cool roof thermally is to have what is known as a double roof. So you have 2 roofs, the main roof and the roof above. There's an air gap in between. How does it work? The sun hits this roof. It heats up the air in between the 2 roofs. Hot air will rise, right? So that hot air is going to go up, exit from the top, and there's an entrance from below that brings in cooler air. So that's one concept, a double roof. No? No matter what you do, make sure you have a outlet for your hot air to get out on the top roof. You know, sometimes we have a hip roof, and normally what happens is that we have our ventilation slits only here at the eaves. No? So even if you have the ventilation slits at the eaves, the hot air is going to get trapped in the apex of the roof. And if there's no way for it to get out, then it's going to bring that heat radiation little by little to the area where the people are. No? So make sure that we have a way to get the hot air out on the highest portion of the roof. Innovation of the roof, in order for you to bring in natural light, ventilation, and have hot air get out, is what is known as a wind and light tower. No? I've done this in some of the warehouse malls in Bye-Bye Leyte area. Is there, no? So you have glass, you have louvers, so that you have natural light coming in, and you also have breeze coming in. And there's a partition in the middle, so that if the breeze is coming through this side, it goes to the louvers, hits that board, and it brings the air down. This becomes positive pressure rather. This becomes negative pressure. If this negative pressure, the hot air can come out here and get out. Okay, so it's interesting to have that. It's one way of actually controlling the heat inside your building. Even if you have slab roofs, the heat is going to go through. Okay, so you have a choice whether you insulate above the roof, which is better, above the slab rather, which is better, so that at least the heat is already controlled here before it hits the slab. Or if you don't have a choice, if your slab is here, at least insulate below. You can actually spray on insulation below your slab so that at least you cool in the interiors. Next, let's go to rainwater harvesting. Again, water is free. Always try to capture rainwater from the highest point. Okay, so rain comes here. Try to capture it as high as possible. Best if it's right under the gutter. No? I see that sometimes people gather rainwater and they move it to a cistern. But the moment it is down, you need a pump to bring it back up. Why not use gravity, which is already a free resource, to be able to move your water from this high level down? Many of my newer buildings, in the highest floor, I have what is known a rainwater tank collection room, so that the water from the roof goes straight into those tanks, and then from those tanks, by gravity, it goes down. No? Now, how do you calculate your rainwater? It's very simple. It's all about the area of your roof times the rainfall coefficient, which you can get from Pagasa. And therefore, you're going to be able to calculate how much rain you can actually collect in your building from your roof. Now, the Green Building Code even has a formula to calculate how big your storage tanks are. No? So it says here, no, rainwater is one of the purest sources of water available. Rainwater from roofs and hardscapes must be collected and reused for non-potable purposes. Minimum storage tank size in cubic meters shall be calculated by dividing the building footprint area. Okay, building footprint area by 75. The answer to that is going to give you a storage tank in cubic meters. I'd like to share with you a interesting way of collecting rainwater. This is the zero carbon resort in Demonstration Cottage in Palawan. And I was one of the lecturers of this group. And I was always toying around with this type of roof. A butterfly roof, but tilted on one side. So if you do that, the butterfly roof actually has a gutter in the middle, a valley gutter. And if you tilt one side higher, then all the water in that valley gutter is actually going to go to one point. And therefore, this is this one point. And we collect the rainwater here. It's a do-it-yourself system. Water runs here. The first wash of rain comes here, gets it's dirty. So this starts filling up. By the time it's filled up, then the cleaner water goes into the storage tank. No? Then after the rain, you open this up so that you drain the water. Now this is interesting because it doesn't need any gutters. It's only one point collection of rainwater. Again, a very interesting and very creative roof system. Now we'll go to photovoltaics. Photovoltaics, especially in houses, are actually put on the roof. And therefore, it's good to understand how photovoltaics work so that you can actually design your roof in such a way that you can actually take the photovoltaics and maximize it. In order to maximize photovoltaics, you have to understand the sun pattern in your area. This is Manila. Manila is 14 degrees above the equator. And by the sun chart, on June 21, which is summer solstice, the sun moves east to west and passes the apex at noontime 8 degrees north of the vertical axis. Okay? This is interesting because we can also use that data to be able to shade our windows on the north. And on the winter solstice, which is December 21, which is the farthest point where the sun is going to pass east-west on the southern side, it is 38 degrees from the vertical. Therefore, you can also calculate your eaves using that. Okay, we need that because that's how we're going to be able to design our roof to be able to take photovoltaics. So therefore, with this system of the sun moving east-west, basically predominantly on the southern side, our roofs to take solar panels must face generally south. At what angle? This is the angle. So if this is north and south, and this is the solar panel, the minimum angle of the solar panel facing south from the horizontal should be equal to the latitude you are above the equator. Manila is 14 degrees above the equator. Therefore, the minimum slope of a solar panel, therefore your roof, has got to be 14 degrees facing south. Of course, because of the summer solstice and winter solstice difference, you have a play of about 15 degrees. No, that's architecture already. You can actually increase that to almost about 30 degrees from the horizontal. No? So if you want to maximize your solar panels, have your roof between 14 degrees, this is Manila, plus an additional 15 degrees to about 30 degrees from the horizontal. You can use that for photovoltaics. You can use it for solar water heaters, which is getting popular now. And you can use that also for solar absorption air conditioners. Okay? So design your roof in such a way that you can take that. No? A quick data on photovoltaics. The lifespan of the panels are 25 years. The battery is only about 3 to 4 years. You can generate about 88 to 176 watts per square meter of solar panels. It depends now because now the costs are going down and the efficiency of solar panels are going up. So here, now if you want to produce 1 kilowatt, you should have at least 7 square meters of solar panels on your roof, assuming that your solar panels are rated between 200 to 250 watts, okay? Again, check the latest data. Now, in order to calculate how much daylight you're going to get, use approximately 4 to 5 hours a day only. No, you can't use 8 hours because really early morning and late afternoon, you don't have much sunlight. No? Now we go to disaster resilience. The classic disaster resilient design in the Philippines for typhoons is the Ivatan houses. You notice this is the Ivatan houses. You have the sea on the right. Then after a short flat area, the mountains go up abruptly, about 45 degrees going up. What did Ivatans do? First of all, they did what is known as you see this low wall? That is a wind deflector. So when the wind hits that thing, it's already deflected up. It's approximately half of the height of the wall of the house. And therefore, this wall of the house is not going to get hit by strong wind. The roof angle is about approximately the angle of the mountain behind. So that, the wind goes here, it's up here. The thickness of this thatch roof is about 1 foot, 30 centimeters. No? So wind is dangerous for the roof. So first of all, we try to avoid valleys. Because as wind passes through a valley, it actually speeds up faster, no? And of course, possibly for floods, no? Avoid also ridges, because again, wind is stronger on that. But if you have no choice because the owner wants it there, then calculate for stronger winds than normal. Now, in terms of roof shapes, I got this from a UNDP document. If the wind is going this direction, the safest roof is actually the Cuatro Aguas because it's slope on all 4 sides. This one, gable roof, is less safe. And the least safe is actually a flat roof, no? And if you have a flat roof, make sure it's at least 20 degrees. So this is the angle. Minimum 25 to about 40. This should be able to minimize damage for typhoons, no? This one is picked up from a UNDP cyclone-resistant building architecture. It's very practical. So if you have your roof in one piece and you have a sort of like a covered space here, like a terrace, be careful because when the wind blows here, you may have this type of damage. So they recommend have your roof on the main house separate from the roof of the terrace so that in case the wind is very strong, at least your house is still safe. They also have a study in which parts of the roof actually get affected by typhoons, no? So first of all, here, the area as most risk is the edges, the overhangs, and the ridges. That's why they have a recommendation how to screw your roof on, no? For example, at the edge here on the eaves, it is every other corrugation, and in the overhang, it's every corrugation. See? Every corrugation at the end. Of course, in between, you can have it every 3 corrugations, no? And of course, in the ridge, it's every other corrugation until you come to the overhang area where it is every corrugation. So these are small details. There are more details if you want. You can look up this book, Cyclone Resistant Building Architecture by this guy, Argawal, UNDP. You'll have a lot of details, not only about the roof, but including typhoon, floods, etc. No? The other detail, which is very important, is to tie the roof down to the columns and to the floor. Many times in typhoons, you see the roofs completely blown off, or sometimes the whole roof, no? In another part of the village, and your house is without a roof, no? So make sure your roof is actually tied down to your beams, the beams tied down to the columns, and the columns tied down to the floor, no? Now let's go to materials. You know, I wanted to make a matrix, but I maybe this will be for my next talk. How do you have a criteria for roofs for the Philippines? First, it has to be cool. Of course, we want to reduce heat. Then it has to be non-toxic in case we want to collect rainwater. Has to be durable so that you don't have to spend so much money all the time fixing up. Acoustics because of the rain. Has to be locally available. At least you can buy it locally. Has to be lightweight, not so heavy, because if not, that will increase your cost of the structure. Of course, the cost of the material itself, and whether that material can be reused or recycled. So let's talk about coolness. So of course, thatch roof, we'll be using the nipa hut. And sometimes people use a GI roof below and thatch roof above, no? And it makes it look nice, rustic. At the same time, it makes that metal roof cooler. Of course, we have classic bamboo. It's available easily, but of course, I think you'll have to replace this every now and then, no? But of course, it's a cool roof. You have tile roof, which is actually from this is a picture taken from vegan. It's very cool, but it's also a little heavy. Of course, you have metal roofs, which is the most popular now, and of course, it's very hot. That's why you have to use metal roofs in combination with other ways of reducing heat. Now, in order to minimize the heat effects of metal roofs, there's a material called coated steel, no? So that at least the stone sort of reduces and minimizes the heat hitting the metal, at the same time also diffuses a little bit the sound. You have shingles, which is actually quiet and cool. Why? Because most shingles is actually laid on plywood, no? Marine plywood below. Of course, you have bitumen sheets, which is actually light, and it's cool, from Onduline, which will be talked about later. You have thermoplastic roofs. One of the manufacturers is actually based in Davao. It's called Metal Plus. I've used this quite a lot also. And the metal sheets have also come up with insulated roofing sheets. But of course, you have green roofs. No? You have green roofs, you see all the layers there. No? So, I am not a fan of green roofs. Why? Look at this. Green roofs insulate, filter rainwater, reduce heat, reflection, and assist in absorbing carbon dioxide. But it also adds weight to the structure, needs a good and tried and tested green roof system for the rainy tropics, and is prone to leaks. And repairing the leaks needs a lot of work. So, I suggest if you have to have a green roof, use modular removable planter box systems, which is a good alternative so that you can actually facilitate maintenance. Okay, green roof considerations. One, structural requirement, waterproofing, and the pitch of the roof, etc. I'd just like to tell you a story. I actually was forced, because the client wanted it, to have a roof deck, the whole roof of the whole house. This is actually in Davao. So what I had to do was create, first of all, the slab was poured already with the inclination. Never rely on the topping to have your inclination. Next, I used a waterproofing which you can actually walk on top of. It's not covered. You can actually recoat it if necessary. Then I use decking material on a structure so that it's elevated from the waterproofing, but at the same time you can remove it easily. And I cheated. I used carpet grass, no? So to make it look like a garden. But in case we have to repair the waterproofing, we just remove the decking material and roll the carpet grass, and we can actually address the waterproofing right away. No? So let's go to a few projects which highlight all of these things. First of all, this Millennium School Design Competition is won by Elena Himil. I was the one who organized this. I wrote the guidelines of the competition and actually ran it for UANP, tied up with My Shelter Foundation. And this was the winner. Now, it is very interesting because look at the structural system. The trusses are connected all the way to the end with a vertical post. It's inclined, of course, no? At the end, it's not an overhang. It's at the end. Then it's tied up together and again tied up to the other side. So remember that little tip there? Have your roofing tied down to the columns, tied down to the foundation. So this actually has that whole roofing in shape, no? So very quickly, just this is, you pour the foundation, you put the pipes which you slip in the bamboo, and you start putting the bamboo elements, then you start tying up the system together, vertical columns which are inclined, tied up to the trusses. Then you start putting the purlins. Then you start putting the roof, metal roof. And this one was this reason why I want to show this to you. And then you put bamboo poles on top of the roof, tied up to the same structural system, really holding down that roof. So you don't have the roof on the medya agua like fluttering outside there. No, you have the whole system integrated as a structure. No, that's the finished product. You see, it's there, tied up directly. So there's no, well, there's a small overhang lang here, but essentially it's actually literally at that edge. No, this was supposed to be steel pipes, and you slide the bamboo inside, but budget constraints, so we ended up Philippine style, PVC na lang. No? Taking off from this idea also, I designed a sustainable village in Leyte. And I used the system of having the structure outside the building and pushing the walls inside the non-load bearing walls so that your structure is up inside. No? So this is just a plan. So this is what happened. Instead of having the beams here, I put the beams outside. The beams actually encase the roof and the columns are here. And even the diagonal part is actually a beam. No? So that's how it's built. The structure is built. Non-load bearing part, then the roof. Then you put the roof. Actually, this project, we used concrete roof tiles because Holcim donated machines to make roof tiles, concrete. And it was very good. It was very cool. No? So this part of the construction, if you see, look at the beams there, it's actually inclined. It actually encases the whole roofing system. No? I use the same principle in an alternative learning center with the ABS-CBN Foundation in Laguna. Same principles, column, inclined beam, roof in the middle there, and there's a beam here at the edge. And this is the finished product. It survived Typhoon Glenda without any roof sheets flying out. No? This is in Maxwell Food Court. I did not do this, but I thought this is a very interesting roof system. Look at the outside. You see the outside the roof? It is your normal standard corrugated roof. Okay? Falls down. Notice it has that orientation. Look inside. Zoom in. Why are the corrugations not sort of 90 degrees from the outside? This is an example of a double roof, a very creative double roof. So they do the corrugations this way, under, and then above, the corrugations go this way because of the rain. No? And this becomes a very, very interesting thing. Of course, we also have a way to get the hot air out. Anyway, if you're familiar with Axwell Food Court, you see this thing. This is Chan Chan chicken rice. It's the best chicken rice in Singapore. But I'll just tell you, tip off, the original cook of this one resigned, and he put up a stall called Atay, AHTAI, 2 or 3 stalls to the left of this stall, and that has still now the best chicken rice, but not too many people know it except for the locals. No. And I'd like to share with you a creative roof, which we did in my firm, Asian Architects. We were tasked to do in University Asia Pacific a gym and a parking building. Of course, a typical gym roof would be just straight, double-sided. And I thought, number one problem, normally in a gym, the inner portion, middle portion is normally dark. So I thought, what if I do a creative roof so that I have light coming into the middle of the gym? Not only that, I alternate the roof angle so that if one is positive pressure, the breeze is coming through, it goes in, and then the hot air will go out to the other side. And then, since we have solar panels here, we did away with the roof insulation because the solar panels actually act as a very good roof insulator and also sound insulator. So I think with that, to be able to come out with a sustainable roof, it is a function. Remember, green architecture is a function. So in the Philippines, that roof must be cool, must create a cool interior so that you are healthier and you save money. You should be able to capture rainwater from your roof if you want to be sustainable. You should be able to install solar panels or solar water heaters so that your roof is actually oriented the right way and with the right angle. And it should be disaster resilient. These are all functions of a sustainable roof. But since we're architects, we still want to have that crowning glory, which is iconic. And that is the form. So sustainable roof is sustainable, that is the function, and iconic, which is the form. So with that, ladies and gentlemen, I hope that I was able to introduce a little bit to you what sustainable roof is all about. And if you want, I also have another Facebook page, facebook.com/archimike. This is where I post all my professional practice tips and everything else about architecture, which is not connected to green architecture because that goes into my specific green architecture page.